not saying anything. He wouldn't have had any idea that perhaps the people were hungry or didn't have water. He might be looking back behind him going, why are those people falling by the side of the road? Because they haven't had any water to drink. Jesus had the same stuff going on with the disciples. You know, when James and John went up to Jesus and said to Jesus, you know, when you become the CEO of the world, we want to be your COO and your CFO. Got it? Your Chief Operations Officer and your Chief Financial Officer. So when you become CEO of the world, Jesus, we want to be on your right and left hand, COO, CFO. And all the other disciples went, how come they get to ask for that? And there was grumbling in the ranks, and they weren't speaking to each other, and everybody was mad at everybody else. And I think that's why Jesus went into the wilderness at 2 o'clock in the morning all the time and said, yes, exactly. But if Jesus didn't hear that grumbling and complaining, he wouldn't have a clue what was going on in the ranks. And he wouldn't have an opportunity to teach them. He wouldn't have an opportunity to share with them the better news. Paul is in the same situation here. He's heard grumbling. He's heard some complaints. He's heard some suspicions that have come back to him about the folks at the church in Thessalonica. And he's heard them saying, well, why did they come here? Was he after the money? He's not taking care of the money we sent with him. Why did he come here? What was it he wanted to get out of us? And here we are left with nothing. Paul's necessity to say to them, I didn't come to you to get anything out of you. I came to you to bring you the gospel, to bring you the good news, and, yes, perhaps to have some expectations of you as followers of Christ. Well, the other morning, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. The same as Paul, the same as Jesus, the same as Moses. Because, yeah, I heard that grumbling. There's some grumbling going on. And I woke up, thank God, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and God said, you know, Moses heard the same thing. Paul heard the same thing. Jesus heard the same thing. If you didn't hear it, you wouldn't know what's going on. So just relax and be glad that you know what's happening. Be glad that you know what's going on. You know, when the folks said about Paul, we don't like what he's doing. Well, all you do is just change the pronoun. We don't like what he's doing. Change the pronoun. We don't like what she's doing. She's spending too much money. She's doing too many things. She's changing too many things. Oh my heavens, what is she doing now? Paul was very, very clear. And he said, you know, I have this call. I have this mission. I have this thing that I've been called to do. I do this because God has an expectation that I do this. I do this because God has an expectation that I will say some of the things that I will say, that I will teach some of the things that I will teach, because God has called me to do this. Now, you may not agree with it, and you may not like it, and you may think that somebody's making demands on you, or you may think, gee, she's micromanaging again. She's sticking her nose into things that she shouldn't be sticking her nose into. You may think all these things, and I invite you to please grumble and complain so I know. So I know how you feel. Please, do me that favor. And the other thing I want to tell you is that there are, and I'm sure Paul's experience was very much that, and Moses' experience was that, and it's the nature of the business. It's the nature of the church. There are arsonists in the church. There are got a clue that they've started a fire. But those of us who see the fire burning, those of us who catch a glimpse of the fire over in the corner, probably would be smart to run over there and go as best we can. But when we see a fire starting, when we see the flames begin to creep up the wall, if you're afraid you can't put the fire out by yourself, get someone else to come and help you. Call the church firefighters to come and help you get that fire out. Because I'm telling you, those people who want to set little fires in the church, if you ignore the fire, like the elephant in the living room, if you ignore that fire, it can become a conflagration. And when it becomes a conflagration, that conflagration, I love that word. I think I learned that in 7th or 8th grade. Conflagration. When it becomes a conflagration, it will destroy everything in its path. It will take absolutely everything with it, and we will be left with nothing. So, my friends, I invite you, please, I beg you, grumble and complain a lot. Let me know what's going on in your heart and in your heads and in your minds. And God and all of the rest of the folks in this church family will help us all work it out. Will help us all make sure that everything is fine and that you get fed or you get something to drink if you're thirsty. You get your needs met. For we are here, my friends. We are here to be those wonderful beacons for God's light. And if we don't feel fed, how can